Losers aren't welcome for Christmas, my dad said about my 18-year-old son, right after mocking his backup med school. This is just embarrassing, his cousin added. I didn't shout. I took action. The next day my parents were calling in a panic. It started with the wine. Not the drinking kind, not yet. I mean the bottle my son held up as he walked into the kitchen, beaming like he'd just won a Nobel Prize for thoughtful holiday gestures. Got the last one at the third store, he said, cheeks red from the cold. It's Grandpa's second favorite. I tried 5 places but they didn't have the usual one. I can go out again later though. He was proud. Proud of a mid-tier bottle of red that probably cost him more in gas than it did on the shelf. But it wasn't about the wine. It was about what it meant. Inclusion. Respect. Tradition. He was still under the illusion that he was wanted. I had just hung up the phone. My hands were still on the counter, bracing myself. I hadn't moved. Not really. I just stood there while his voice floated toward me like nothing had happened. But something had. Something had cracked open inside me during that call. Something I hadn't felt in years. Rage, yes. But beneath it, something colder. Clarity. It was my mom who called. She always leads with a weird politeness when she's about to say something cruel. Like a flight attendant smiling right before the emergency crash landing. We've just invited so many people this year, she said lightly. It's going to be tight. Really tight. We were thinking, maybe your son could sit this one out. Sit it out. Just this year, she said quickly. Of course you're still welcome. It's not personal. Not personal. That was the moment I knew it absolutely was. And then, like some horrible Greek chorus of entitlement, I heard the rest of them. My dad's voice in the background, not even bothering to lower it. Tell him, losers aren't welcome for Christmas. That wasn't even the worst part. Because my mom shushed him. Shh. You can't say it like that, which means she knew it sounded bad. But he didn't stop. He doubled down. His backup med school is just embarrassing. Then came my nephew's voice. That cousin. The one who spent his entire adolescence acting like he was allergic to humility. What's his school called again? Snorting laughter. Oh right, mediocre state. Do they even have cadavers or just plastic skeletons? I wish I could say I hung up with dignity. I didn't. I just clicked the red button and stood there like someone had unplugged me. It wasn't just the words. It was how comfortable they were saying them. Like it was a joke they'd been telling behind our backs for a while. And the worst part? My son hadn't heard a word. He was still wrapping a small box in cheap paper. Something he'd picked out for my mom. I think it was tea. Her favorite kind. The kind he'd ordered online 2 weeks ago just to make sure it arrived in time. His face lit up when he talked about it. They were almost out of this too, he said. It's funny how stuff disappears around Christmas, huh? I nodded. Or maybe I blinked. I honestly don't remember. Because what do you say to a kid who still believes that effort earns you love? I didn't say anything. Not then. That evening I did what most emotionally destabilized mothers do when they've just realized their parents are quietly horrible. I doom-scrolled. And that's when I saw it. A meme. Posted by my nephew. The golden boy. The one who goes to that law school with the cult of prestige and a tuition price tag that could buy a small island. The meme showed a toy doctor set. One of those plastic kits for toddlers. Caption read. Graduates from Crestwell Med be like, I diagnose you with vibes. I wish I were making that up. There were comments too. From his friends. Other polished, overgroomed prep school clones. Not a real school. Pretty sure you can apply there with a library card and a dream. I think my dentist went there. That explains a lot. Fake school. Fake degrees. Fake doctors. And then I saw it. My dad had liked the post. Not just seen it. Not just scrolled past. He liked it. Thumb up. Endorsed. I felt something slide out of place inside my chest. Not break. Just shift. My son still didn't know. He was in his room, probably writing a Christmas card in that neat handwriting he inherited from no one in this family. Probably saying something like, thank you for always believing in me. And I had no idea how I was going to tell him that they didn't even want him at the table. That they were laughing behind his back while he planned out his gift bags. That he had been disinvited. Not because of some room shortage. Not because of a head count. But because he hadn't picked a school with a name that stroked their egos. They called him a loser. And somehow still expected me to show up. Smile. Pass the stuffing. I could feel the storm building behind my ribs. And no, I didn't shout. But I did take action. The next day they were the ones calling me in a panic. I used to think student debt was the dumbest decision I'd ever made. Then I found out I'd been sending money, every month, to the same people who called my son a loser behind his back. But we'll get there. To understand what happened last Christmas, you first need to understand what kind of family I come from. We didn't just believe in education, we believed in prestige. The name on your degree was everything. Harvard could have offered a masterclass in how to boil water, and my parents would have fought each other for a seat. Both of them worked in science. Steady careers in academia. Think small offices, coffee-stained journals, long-winded debates over journal articles. They weren't wealthy, but they wore their degrees like medals of honor. And they expected us to do the same. I have an older brother, 3 years ahead of me and somehow always 10 steps further in their eyes. According to them, he was exceptionally gifted. He just needed structure. And by structure, I mean endless tutors, coaching programs, extra courses, academic summer camps. Nothing was too expensive. Nothing was too much. By the time I was 5, I was being coached for a competitive primary school entrance exam. There were flashcards on the fridge. Pop quizzes at dinner. At one point, I had a laminated test schedule pinned to my bedroom door. I'm not kidding. The pressure wasn't called pressure. It was called support. When my brother got into a prestigious law program, it was treated like a family coronation. My parents printed the acceptance email, framed it, celebrated with a dinner that probably cost more than my first apartment's security deposit. They paid his tuition, housing, books, snacks, everything. He was the investment. Then came my turn. We'd love to help, they said. But things are a little tight right now. Funny how the money had run out by the time I arrived at the same milestone. But they still wanted me to go to that top-tier university. They just didn't want to pay for it. We'll help you apply for scholarships, my dad offered. Loans are totally normal, my mom added. And once you graduate, it'll all be worth it. So I went. I took the loans. I studied hard. I did everything right. And I graduated with a shiny diploma and over $100,000 in debt. No one clapped when the payments started. No one offered to help when the interest piled up. Now I'm in my early 40s. I have a good job. I'm doing okay. But I'm still carrying that debt like a second spine. Living paycheck to paycheck. Skipping things. Budgeting hard. Smiling through it all. When my parents retired, they told me they were struggling. We didn't save enough, they said. You know how it is in academia. And because I was still trying to be a good daughter, I believed them. I started sending money. Just a little at first. Grocery bills. Electricity. A few small things. Then it became more regular. I cut corners in my own life. Skipped vacations. Skipped upgrades. Delayed fixing my roof. I figured it was what good daughters do. It never occurred to me that they might be using that money for something else. We'll come back to that. Let's talk about how I raised my son. I never sold him the fantasy. Never told him that college was only worthwhile if the name looked good on a resume. I told him to choose a path he could live with and afford. I didn't want him to go through what I did. And he listened. He watched me struggle. He heard the sighs at bill time. The way my voice changed when I checked my bank balance. He never said much, but I know he saw it. So when college decisions came, he made his own quiet choice. He got into a big-name university. A school my parents would have lost their minds over. But he didn't tell them. He didn't want their input. He didn't want the pressure. Instead, he chose a local med school. Not top 10. Not Ivy. But solid. Reputable. He got a partial scholarship. He could live at home. No loans. I was proud. Not just of the acceptance but of the wisdom in his decision. He chose peace over prestige. But to my parents, that decision made him an embarrassment. They couldn't see past the ranking. They couldn't hear the logic over the sound of their own egos cracking. It shouldn't have surprised me. Not when you look at how they treat my brother's son, just 1 year older than mine. He's following in his dad's footsteps. Law school, big name, big price tag. He doesn't work. Doesn't have to. My brother and his wife paid for private school, test prep, tuition. The works. He's smug, arrogant, and frankly, unpleasant. But to my parents, he's the golden grandchild. They post about him online. Long captions. Proud updates. They call him the next great mind. My son. They barely mention him. Maybe a throwaway sentence if I bring him up first. Every year my parents host Christmas dinner. It's always the same group: family, old friends, academic colleagues turned family friends. It's tradition. And over the years I became close to many of them. So did my son. These weren't just my parents' guests. They were our people. He grew up sitting at that table, calling them aunt and uncle even when they weren't blood. They came to his concerts, sent birthday cards, just about school. He felt known. He felt loved. So when my mom called and said there wasn't room for him this year, it didn't feel like logistics. It felt like rejection. And when I heard my dad in the background call him a loser, it felt like betrayal. I used to think the worst mistake I ever made was going into debt for a diploma. But maybe it was believing, after all these years, that my parents could change. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was sad. Not even because I was angry. I'd passed those exits hours earlier. What I felt now was something colder, sharper, like glass shifting underfoot. I'd spent years walking that tightrope, between compliance and dignity. But this pushed me off. My son, meanwhile, was in the living room studying. His first winter break in med school, and he was reviewing anatomy like it was a Netflix show. I stood in the doorway and all I could think was, how the hell do I tell him? How do you tell your kid that his own family thinks he's beneath them? That he's not welcome, not because he did anything wrong, but because he didn't perform well enough for them? I sat down across from him. I need to tell you something, I said. About Christmas. He blinked, pen still in his hand. I told him. Everything. The call. The background noise. The laughter. The words. The meme. Like, he didn't say anything. He just listened. And when I finished, he didn't cry. He didn't yell. He just closed the textbook, stood up and went to his room. The door clicked shut like a period. That was it. No, it's fine. No, I don't care. Just silence. And that hurt more than any meltdown ever could. I sat there for a while. Let it sting. Then I opened my laptop. There had been a group email a few weeks back. My mom had sent it, CCing the usual list. The subject line was, Christmas dinner. Please confirm allergies. There was one vegan. Someone allergic to hazelnuts. Another who avoided gluten. I reread the list. All 18 names. I knew every one of them. Half were people I'd called aunt and uncle growing up, even though they weren't technically related. The others were longtime family friends. People who'd known me since I was a teenager, who liked my son, sent him books when he was little, gave him $10 Starbucks cards for his birthday. They weren't my parents' people. They were ours. So I picked up the phone. I didn't make a speech. I didn't campaign. I just called. One by one. Hey, just so you know, we're not going this year. They uninvited my son. They said there wasn't space. But there are 18 confirmed guests. You do the math. Some were shocked. Some were silent. One person actually cursed. And then came the pause. The same one every time. That breath people take when they realize they're about to have to choose. And most of them did. They chose us. By Christmas Eve, I'd heard from 13 of the 18. Quiet RSVPs. We'll be there. We don't agree with this. Your son is family. Some apologized. Some didn't. I didn't need groveling. I just wanted truth. Even my brother's wife texted me separately. I had no idea they said that. I'm sorry. I'm coming to yours. Don't tell Mark yet. Mark, my brother, wasn't invited. Neither was his son. I told myself it wasn't petty. It was fair. Christmas morning I got up early. Not because I wanted to, but because revenge, as it turns out, requires a lot of prep work. I roasted. I basted. I folded napkins with more spite than origami ever intended. My son stayed quiet most of the day. He offered to help, but I waved him off. I think he knew I needed this more than he did. By 5 o'clock the house was full. The table groaned with food. The lights were warm. The tree glowed like it was in on the secret. People arrived with wine, with gifts, with hugs that lasted a second too long. They told my son they were proud. That med school was an achievement no matter the zip code. They told him they remembered his science fair project in 3rd grade. The one with the exploding volcano and the safety goggles. They made him laugh. They made him feel seen. And then my phone rang. I stared at the caller ID. Of course. I stepped outside to answer. Cold air. Quiet porch. My hands were still greasy from carving the turkey. What did you do? She snapped. No hello. No pleasantries. Just fury. What the hell did you say to them? To who? I asked calmly. Everyone, she hissed. We made dinner for 18 people. 2 showed up. 2. And one of them was your brother. Sounds like a quiet evening, I said. Plenty of leftovers. This is not funny, Carolyn. No. It's not. Did you tell them we uninvited him? You did uninvite him. That's not how we meant it. You said there wasn't room. There wasn't. Not for a loser, right? I said. Not for someone who chose a school that wouldn't make your friends jealous? She went quiet. Then she said it. You're ruining this family. I laughed. It slipped out before I could stop it. I'm ruining the family? I repeated. You're the one who told your grandson to stay home for Christmas because he wasn't fancy enough. We didn't say. Yes. You did. I hung up. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just, finally. Back inside, the room was loud and warm. Someone had pulled out a board game. Someone else was refilling wine. My son was on the couch, laughing with a woman who used to babysit him. He looked okay. He looked all right. And for the first time in a long time, so did I. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw a tantrum. But I made damn sure they heard me anyway. By the time the last guest left and I finished scrubbing gravy off the stovetop, the house was quiet again. But it wasn't the same kind of quiet as before. Something had shifted. Permanently. My son was upstairs. I could hear him pacing, maybe on the phone, maybe not. He hadn't said much all night. He'd smiled, eaten, thanked everyone. But underneath it I could see the wound. Not bleeding anymore, but still open. I stood at the sink, hands damp, and stared at the window. Then I reached for my phone, opened my banking app, and clicked into the recurring transfer I'd been sending to my parents every month. You know what's funny? I didn't even blink. I just hit cancel. No ceremony. No final message. Just done. I used to think I was being a good daughter. They were retired, I wasn't rich, but I was stable, and they said their pensions didn't stretch far. So I helped. Quietly. Steadily. It wasn't much, but enough to keep their bills covered. But now, if they could afford to humiliate my son, they didn't need my help. Not financially. Not emotionally. Not at all. And I meant it. 3 days later I got the notification. My mom had posted something in the wider family group chat. Not the private one for birthdays and photos, but the big one. The look how functional we are chat with extended family, second cousins, and people who think every forwarded prayer counts as intimacy. The post was short. A cropped picture of her mostly empty dinner table. And this caption. Some people don't understand what it means to ruin Christmas. I hope they're proud of themselves. No names. Just venom. I stared at it for a while. Then set my phone down, made myself tea, and came back 10 minutes later. There were already replies. A few question marks. A what happened? From a cousin in Florida. One of my dad's sisters chimed in with a passive, that's such a shame. I didn't argue. I just posted 3 things. First, a screenshot of the meme her golden grandson had shared. The one mocking my son's med school. Caption read. Graduates from Crestwell Med be like, I diagnose you with vibes. And right underneath it, a like from my father. Second, a line I typed myself. No screenshot, just memory. What my dad said in the background during the call. Losers aren't welcome for Christmas. And third, one final sentence. Just so we're clear, my son was never welcome. That was their choice. Then I put my phone down. I didn't watch the chaos unfold. I didn't need to. But later that night my inbox was full. Not apologies, just quiet support. A few simple messages. Thank you for saying something. We had no idea. Nothing from my parents. Just silence. It was almost 2 weeks before I saw them. No warning. No call. Just a knock at the door one Wednesday afternoon. I opened it with a half-full laundry basket in my arms and froze. They stood on my front step like nothing had happened. Like this was a social visit. My mom spoke first. We thought it was time to talk. I didn't move. Talk about what? She gave that tight, brittle smile I knew too well. Let's not make this worse than it already is. We just want to clear the air. Clear the air. I echoed. My dad shifted beside her. You're ruining this family over nothing. There was not an apology, not a scrap of remorse, just projection like always. We've always supported you, he added. This isn't fair. I set the laundry basket down slowly. You excluded him from a holiday that's supposed to be about family. And laughed while doing it. My mother flinched. We didn't mean it like that. I don't care how you meant it, I said. You meant it enough to say it. And you let everyone else laugh about it too. We didn't think it would be taken so seriously, she offered. Then maybe you shouldn't have said it at all. She opened her mouth again, but I stepped back and shut the door. Not slammed. Just closed. Firm. Done. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. And I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. 3 days later there was another knock. I opened the door expecting Amazon. It was my nephew. Mr. Meme Poster himself in an overpriced coat and smug expression, trying to look humble. Hey, he said. Can we talk? I leaned against the doorframe. About what? He gave a sheepish shrug. I just feel like things got out of hand. I didn't mean for it to blow up like this. No. You didn't mean to mock your cousin's school and call him a fake doctor. He winced. It was a joke. I thought it was obvious. I folded my arms. If it was so obvious, why are you here now? He paused. Then gave it away without even realizing it. Because they were helping me. Financially. So if you cut them off. I stared at him. Wait, I said slowly. You mean the money I was sending, the help I thought was keeping them afloat? He hesitated. Was going to you? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I didn't explode. I didn't need to. You think this was between you and them, I said. But they used my help to prop up your ego and humiliate my son with it. I didn't ask for that money, he muttered. But you sure as hell spent it, didn't you? He didn't reply. Behind me I could hear my son moving in the kitchen. I didn't want him to come to the door. He didn't need to see this. So I turned to my nephew, one hand on the door. Leave, I said quietly. And don't come back. He started to say something, some version of sorry maybe, but I shut the door. No dramatic speech. No storming off. Just a locked door. And peace. For the first time in years. It's been a few years now. We're still no contact with my parents, my brother, and, surprise, surprise, the golden nephew. My son's doing great. He's still in med school, thriving. Just started applying for internships and already has a couple interviews lined up. He's steady, focused. He's going to make one hell of a doctor. And the best part? No student debt hanging over his head. The other day, I heard through the grapevine that my nephew dropped out of his prestigious law program before graduating. No degree. Just a long trail of lost tuition money behind him. Apparently there were disciplinary issues. Something about getting drunk and insulting other students in a group project. Now he's applying to local colleges to try to finish something. Not the one my son goes to, of course. Even he wouldn't have the nerve. This one's a few notches lower in ranking. I don't know what broke him. I'm not sure I need to know. But sometimes I wonder, was I too petty that Christmas? Was it too much to reroute the entire guest list? Or was it just far enough? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't yet, subscribe.